Joining us now, Sky News Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons in Jerusalem, also co-host of the weekend primetime Ayman Mohyeldin. Adam, I'll start with you. What do we know about the status of the negotiations in Egypt?
Well, we know they're ongoing, which I guess is the positive thing. In the absence of bad news, negotiations are carrying on, and there were many who thought that they could stutter. And as you've just been hearing, the indications are actually pretty positive, particularly with the Qatari Prime Minister. He's going to join these talks. Looks like Steve Witkoff is also on the way. And we know that Ron Dermer from Israel is playing a significant part, and Khalid al-Hayya there for Hamas. So effectively, you've got a lot of big hitters in various rooms in Sharm el-Sheikh. And we also know that Hamas has come there with a series of proposals, including returning all the hostages. But the devil will be in the detail, because the conditions are significant. Hamas saying that they will return these hostages as long as Israel withdraws all of its troops from the Gaza Strip. Well, I doubt that is going to happen. And Israel is confronted by the fact that the Hamas is saying it needs a Palestinian input in the future governance of the Gaza Strip, something that Benjamin Netanyahu has got his face set against and has done for an awfully long time. So there are positive signs. And I think in this country, in this region, there are so many people who want to be optimistic, who want to see smoke signals that success is on the horizon, who are weary of war and weary, particularly today, of commemorating the 1,200 deaths that happened on October the 7th 2 years ago, the hostages who were taken. And, of course, so many are terrified in Gaza, where 67,000 have been killed by military action. Everybody rational would want to see an end to this, and yet within it are the political demands of sides with entrenched positions.
Yeah, let's talk about that. There's clearly pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu from President Trump, from Israeli people. Is it going to be enough pressure? That's open for debate. Where's the pressure coming from on Hamas? Is there pressure?
Tremendous pressure. There's a lot of political pressure on them. You can make an argument, obviously not in the same kind of democratic sense, but a lot of the polling suggests that there has been growing disenfranchisement with Hamas over the past 2 years for what has happened. Obviously, the only way to measure that politically is with elections, but they want to be a part of it. We're hearing from the Israelis that they cannot be a part of it going forward. And their position is that's going to be up to the Palestinian people in terms of what the political leadership of Palestine, the Palestinian movement, looks like going forward. The pressure on them also is because their military wing has been somewhat decimated. The leadership has been decimated. A lot of rank-and-file soldiers are still in place. And it was very poignant to hear from Ruby Henn, something that I think a lot of analysts have wondered about from the beginning of this war, which was Israel set out these two goals: to free the hostages and to destroy Hamas. And as he said, those were at times very incongruent goals, because in order to release the hostages, as we have seen over the past 2 years, the most hostages have been released by negotiating with Hamas. And here we are at the very end of this, hopefully, with Israel still negotiating with Hamas that has not been destroyed politically or militarily.
Yeah, and listen, he said pretty clearly what hostage families have been saying now for a while, which is they don't believe Benjamin Netanyahu has their best interests or the interests of their loved ones who have been held or killed at heart, and that this war was not fought to get them home. It was fought, again, to eradicate Hamas. What do we know about the status of the negotiations in Egypt from the Hamas side of things?
Well, it seems like it's intensifying, as we just heard as well from people on the ground there. Some of the most important players in the region are going to Cairo, and they're going to Cairo to kind of bolster these talks so that everybody can make these commitments in person. A lot of times what happens is negotiations have been fractured. The U.S. was negotiating with Israel. They made that announcement. No Palestinians were involved in that drafting of the so-called Trump peace plan. They don't even have representatives here in the United States in order for the U.S. to have direct contacts with them. So by basically congregating everybody to Cairo, you can intensify these negotiations very quickly, and you can kind of hammer out some of these questions, the lingering questions about timeline and mechanism and how this is going to play out, because the sequencing Katie, is really the most important part. The terms have been kind of on the board for a while now. All the hostages would be released. Israel would end its war and withdraw from Gaza. But the sequencing of events is where things have broken down in the past. And that's what everyone is worried about. If you don't flush it out, it could happen again.
I know you know a lot of people out there. How are your friends, those you know in Gaza, how are they doing right now?
Well, the word that I hear over and over again from everyone I speak to is it's hell on earth. Life has been hell for the past 2 years. I don't know a single person there who has not either lost their home or lost a loved one or lost their livelihood. So a lot of the people that I speak to right now, for them, it's kind of like a zombie wasteland. Sometimes it's almost embarrassing to kind of ask them how they're doing. The reality is you see it, they tell you about it. But there is a hope, there is a resilience there that life has to go on, and they're hoping that this peace deal will come to fruition and put an end to this. But I do think that for the most part, anytime you speak to Palestinians inside Gaza, there is really no sense of hope, but despair for what has transpired over the past 2 years.
It's been a horrible 2 years.
For everyone.
Eamon, really good to have you. Adam, thank you as well.
It wasn't the first lie ever told before the United States Senate, and it certainly won't be the last. But what Attorney General Pam Bondi said before the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee this afternoon may very well go down as one of the most brazen, most shameless, most verifiably false statements ever uttered in that setting. Quote, the two-tiered system of justice is over? In fact, if Bondi's on-the-record testimony today served to prove anything out in public, anything at all, it is that a two-tiered system of justice has very much been operationalized, is the new reality in the United States of America right now. Just ask former FBI Director Jim Comey, whose recent federal indictment, initiated mere days after a public pressure campaign, was a frequent topic of inquiry this afternoon. Again and again and again, Bondi refused to answer questions on the matter, questions about Eric Siebert. He's the now former U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. He was forced to resign after he concluded that there was not sufficient evidence to indict Jim Comey, and questions about potential coordination between Donald Trump and the Department of Justice. Watch.
The night before James Comey's indictment, you had dinner with the President of the United States. Pretty intimate group.
Actually, there were a lot of people there that night. That's a great picture.
Was James Comey discussed at that dinner?
I love that picture. That's a great picture. And there were a lot of people there that night. I think the entire cabinet was there.
Did you discuss James Comey with the President of the United States? He was sitting just to your left.
Well, 2 seats down, yes. 2 seats down. And I am not going to discuss any conversations I have had or not have with the President of the United States.
Because the American public is entitled to know, Madam Attorney General.
The entire cabinet was at that dinner.
Whether you took instructions from President Trump after he told you very directly to indict James Comey, which is weaponization of the Department of Justice.
Her refusal to answer legitimate questions and, if anything, to seem to make a mockery of the setting and the body itself, and to refuse to address those questions regarding ongoing controversies at the Department of Justice wasn't just focused on the Comey prosecution. It extended to the latest reporting on Donald Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, and allegations that he accepted $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents last year.
What became of the $50,000 in cash that the FBI paid to Mr. Homan in a paper bag, evidently?
Senator, as Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche recently stated, the investigation of Mr. Homan was subjected to a full review by the FBI, agents, and DOJ prosecutors. They found no credible evidence of any wrongdoing.
And that was not my question. My question was, what became of the $50,000 in cash that the FBI delivered, evidently in a paper bag, to Mr. Homan?
Senator, I'd look at your facts.
I can see I'm not going to get a straight answer from you to a very simple question.
By the FBI agents and the DOJ. They found no credible evidence of wrongdoing. You know, you're very concerned about money and people taking money, and you rail against dark money.
Wait a second.
You work with dark money groups all the time. Senator, I would be more concerned if I were you when you talk about corruption and money that when you pushed for legislation that would subsidize your wife's company.
The questions here are actually pretty specific. So having you respond with completely irrelevant far-right internet talking points really is not very helpful here.
Another exhausting non-answer, seemingly read from some sort of opposition research book that didn't meet the caliber of something on a congressional campaign, from a sitting attorney general today, who was far more concerned with launching those ad hominem attacks on Democratic lawmakers exclusively, the ones asking the tough questions, than she was in doing what her job says she should do, which is answer questions in that setting, and what she said she would do, which is to end a two-tiered system of justice. It's where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. MSNBC Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delanian is here. Also joining us, former top official at the Department of Justice, MSNBC legal analyst Andrew Weissman's here, and former Democratic Senator, MSNBC political analyst Claire McCaskill's here. Claire, I'm going to start with you because I think you're the only person here who may have recognized her attacks as just run-of-the-mill sort of flunky campaign level oppo that was in her binder along with a bunch of prepared statements. I've never seen that before. Have you?
Oh, no. I've never seen anything like this by a low-level witness off the street, much less the Attorney General, the sitting Attorney General of the United States. And you're right, it's low-level oppo BS. But here's the thing that's stunning about her testimony today. I am shocked that no Republican on the committee spoke up when the Attorney General of the United States spent the entire time of her questioning by Democratic senators screaming, refusing to answer basic oversight questions, and attacking them with ad hominem, not factual attacks that were personal in nature. And no one said a word on the Republican side, especially the chairman of the committee, Chuck Grassley. This never would have been allowed to go on when I was in the United States Senate. There would have been a bipartisan effort to stop that witness in their tracks. That's how far the Republican Party in the United States Senate has fallen. And the members of that Judiciary Committee with an R behind their names, they are single-handedly, brick by brick, undoing the power of the Senate to have oversight in one of the most legendary committees in history. And they are permanently impacting the ability of our democracy to function as our founding fathers intended. And it was a shocking display, and it was so stupid and ugly and frankly embarrassing. I'm really surprised no one spoke up, not one of them.
Ken Delanian, you were monitoring this for us. I guess I would point out the mission was obviously to vamp for Fox News clips. She probably scored high marks for that endeavor. I'm sure she'll look great tonight. But Trump is sitting at a 37% approval rating, and one of the most unpopular things he's doing is weaponizing the Department of Justice. 70% of Americans oppose sort of a vague question about weaponization, and the number goes higher when you put in indicting Jim Comey, indicting these people. He doesn't even bring along all of the people who voted for him less than 1 year ago. What was this about, in your view?
It was about not answering questions, Nicole, first and foremost, because these were questions that were that the answers to which I think really put the Trump administration in a very difficult position. Why did you fire the U.S. attorney who wouldn't bring the case? Did Tom Homan take the money? These are questions they don't want to answer. And so the strategy was, as you said, to read from an oppo sheet and to attack each senator individually. And, you could debate about whether the Democrats had a good strategy to rebut that. I personally don't think that they did, although some did better than others. But you're right. Claire is absolutely right. We've never seen anything like this before. Christopher Wray used to go up there and get railed by the Republicans on the Hill. They would attack him left, right, and center on making baseless allegations, and he would just sit there and take it because that's what he thought was his role as FBI director, not to fight back, not to read from an oppo sheet, and no doubt he could have as the FBI director. But one of the most striking things to me about today was that there were a lot of questions that she could hide behind. That's a pending investigation, or I don't talk about personnel matters. But one thing one place where that does not apply is the Tom Homan matter, because that is a closed investigation. There's nothing pending about it. And so it's hard for me to imagine that she doesn't know the factual answer to the question of did he actually accept the money from an FBI undercover and what happened to that money. I mean, if she's seen the files, if she's talked to anybody who's reviewed that case, she knows the answer to that question, and she refused to answer it today, and she has no good reason to answer it, and not to answer it, rather. And that is a fundamental question that I think we can all agree, like, the American public has a right to that information. This person who's wielding enormous power in the government right now, according to our sources and according to a document we've seen, accepted $50,000 from undercover FBI agents in a sting as part of a corruption investigation. The Justice Department dropped that investigation. They're telling us it was reviewed and there was no crime found, but they won't release any of the documents, and they won't even tell us the basic facts. Did he keep the money? If he did he pay taxes on it? So that to me was the most extraordinary moment of an extraordinary day.
I mean, Ken, two follow-up questions for you on that. I mean, I think they did more than what you just articulated. Today, Fox News is reporting that the FBI fired and dismantled the entire corruption squad. It was ostensibly about phone records being swept up in the investigation of the insurrection on January 6th. But they don't just excuse their own. They destroy the law enforcement capability that might damage their own. What did they say about that, if anything?
This was, Nicole, an insidious triumph of right-wing propaganda, because Chuck Grassley releases this redacted FBI document that shows that the FBI, as part of the Jack Smith investigation, obtained the tolling records, to and from records that are the property of the phone company and that are obtainable by a subpoena, not a warrant, not a court order, but a subpoena. The FBI obtained those in the course of investigating the insurrection. But Grassley puts that out. Right-wing media explodes in rage and calls this spying on Republican senators. And by the time it gets to the hearing, when sort of mainstream reporters like me are just trying to figure out what is this all about and what's the context here, you have senators saying that they were wiretapped, which was just a fantasy. That's not what happened. What this was Jack Smith trying to figure out who Donald Trump was calling when he was trying to delay the certification. This is according to my sources, of the 2020 election. He was talking to members of Congress, and it wasn't just, he has multiple cell phones, he goes through intermediaries, and there was a reference to this in the Smith report. He talks about Trump calling members of Congress, and he also talks about consulting with public integrity about the proper way to investigate that and how to obtain documents. So this is perfectly legitimate. These senators were not targeted. They were not under investigation. They were essentially witnesses in this investigation, but they've made it into this fake scandal, and now it's having real-world repercussions because, as you said, Kash Patel just announced not long ago that he's firing FBI agents and disbanding a corruption squad. This is not the first corruption squad they disbanded, by the way. They had previously disbanded one in the Washington field office whose job was to investigate corruption in Congress, ironically enough. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. These FBI agents are losing their jobs because they did what they were asked to do in a lawfully predicated investigation, and another corruption squad looking at public corruption doesn't exist. And a lot of people think that right now no one in the FBI or the Justice Department is examining public corruption unless it's something that Donald Trump wants them to look at.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Today, as the government shutdown is about to enter its second week and the federal government's occupation of Chicago is looking increasingly violent and lawless, The government's top lawyer, Pam Bondi, traveled to Capitol Hill and demonstrated to the entire country why she may be the worst attorney general in this country's history. I mean, really, it's hard to come up with someone else who's done more damage to the Department of Justice, to the rule of law and the constitutional order in such a short time, at least in recent memory. From misleading the public on the Epstein files to blasting judges who dare to act as a check on the administration to, crucially, dropping criminal investigations into Trump allies and using criminal investigations explicitly to target Trump's enemies. We haven't seen an attorney general quite like Pam Bondi. Today, Bondi was supposed to be testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee in her very first oversight hearing since becoming the country's chief legal officer. But instead, she made clear what we had all begun to assume, that she's Trump's lawyer, not America's. And she also did it in sort of textbook MAGA fashion, trolling the senators, evading their questions with these scripted insults and comebacks dripping with contempt for the elected officials who dared to question her authority.
They are going to transfer Texas National Guard units to the state of Illinois. What's the rationale for that?
Yeah, Chairman, as you shut down the government, you voted to shut down the government, and you're sitting here, our law enforcement officers aren't being paid. They're out there working to protect you. I wish you loved Chicago as much as you hate President Trump.
The same lobbyists who met with your people and basically got rid of the antitrust case.
Senator, I don't think a lot of people like that you were out protesting with Antifa.
Right.
What is the answer? Did he take the money?
You know, Senator Schiff, if you worked for me, you would have been fired because you were censured by Congress for lying with your
We can stipulate to, you can stipulate to all your personal attacks on the Democratic members of the committee.
Personal attacks.
The senators there threw their questions. And again, a lot of those questions weren't even like gotcha questions. I mean, what is the legal rationale for that? Just answer, right? They laid out a damning case that Bondi has utterly corrupted and abused the justice system and the Justice Department in unconstitutional ways, illegal ways that really do strike at the very heart of our freedom as Americans. Like, are you free from malicious prosecution? And she had no real rebuttal for any of it other than this kind of intense performative truculence. Senators asked her about Trump border czar Tom Homan. Totally legitimate question, right? Who reportedly accepted a bag containing $50,000 from undercover FBI agents last year on tape in exchange for help getting government contracts. But the FBI abruptly dropped its criminal probe into Homan on orders from Bondi's Department of Justice.
You know, there's a tape, right, with Mr. Homan? I mean, first of all, is there a tape that has audio and video of the transfer of the $50,000?
You would have to talk to Director Patel about that.
No, I'm talking to you.
I don't know the answer, Senator.
Yeah, you do know the answer to that.
Don't call me a liar.
My question was, what became of the $50,000 in cash that the FBI delivered, evidently in a paper bag, to Mr. Homan?
Senator, I'd look at your facts. The investigation of Mr.
Never mind.
Homan
I can see I'm not going to get a straight answer from you to a very simple question.
By the FBI agents and the DOJ. They found no credible evidence of wrongdoing. You know, you're very concerned about money and people taking money, and you rail against dark money.
Wait a second.
You work with dark money groups all the time, Senator Whitehouse.
So, if you hadn't noticed, right, this big question spurred by MSNBC's exclusive reporting about Tom Homan, which is, what happened to the $50,000? A question as yet unanswered. A question that has not been, and Homan's not denied taking the money, right? So his border czar gets a bag of cash and keeps his job. And do we get an answer from Pam Bondi today? We do not. Meanwhile, Bondi's Department of Justice going full steam ahead with its politically motivated prosecution of former FBI director and Trump critic James Comey. He's set to be arraigned tomorrow morning on 2 federal charges. We had reporting that they were looking for big, beefy agents to perp walk him, but they wouldn't do it. That was something else Bondi refused to talk to senators about.
The night before James Comey's indictment, you had dinner with the President of the United States. Pretty intimate group.
Actually, there were a lot of people there that night. That's a great picture.
Was James Comey discussed at that dinner?
I love that picture. That's a great picture. And there were a lot of people there that night.
I was going to ask you if you received advice, instruction, or request from anyone at the White House to direct the department to engage in any investigations, prosecutorial actions, including decisions not to investigate or prosecute anyone?
I'm not going to discuss any conversations.
But then how about the Truth Social post on September 20th, 2025, in which the president said, "We can't delay any longer, Pam," using your name, "not bringing criminal charges are killing our reputation," his words, "and credibility." And then goes on to tell you to prosecute a member of this committee, to prosecute the Attorney General of New York, and to prosecute James Comey. Do you consider that a directive to the Justice Department?
Senator Klobuchar, President Trump is the most transparent president in American history. And I don't think he said anything that he hasn't said for years.
Trump, of course, literally posted to social media telling Pam to indict Comey, quote, "Pam, we can't delay any longer. Justice must be served now, President DJT." And remember, when the U.S. Attorney for Eastern Virginia, who was appointed by Trump, right, had good conservative bona fides, Emil Bovee apparently really liked him, worked with him, when he refused to do this obviously illegal, unconstitutional, malicious act, saying there wasn't sufficient evidence of a crime and it would be an enormous transgression to prosecute someone because the president didn't like him, Bondi's DOJ forced him out, and they replaced him with a prosecutor who never prosecuted a case in her life so that she could indict Comey, a woman who, by the way, had previously been Trump's defense attorney. Just as well, Pam Bondi once defended Trump in his first impeachment trial back in 2020 before he gave her this highest legal post in the land. Bondi is in that post to do one thing and one thing only, whatever Trump wants her to do. She's not here to answer to anyone else, least of all the American people and their elected officials, as California Senator Adam Schiff pointed out in another testy exchange.
So these are just some of the questions you refuse to answer, or have answered with personal attacks on members of this committee. You were asked whether you consulted with career ethics lawyers, as you promised you would do during your nomination hearing, when you approved the president receiving a $400 million gift from the Qataris. You refused to answer that question. You were asked who or what role you may have played, or who played the role in asking that Trump's name be flagged in any of the Epstein documents gathered by the FBI. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Homan kept the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Homan paid taxes on the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked, did career prosecutors find insufficient evidence to charge James Comey? You refused to answer that question. You were asked, how are military strikes on these boats in the Caribbean legal? And you refused to even answer that question. You were asked,
a law degree,
excuse me.
One point of fact, Adam Schiff does have a law degree. He's practiced law longer than Pam Bondi, who is, as you can see, in a weird way, right? Covering for this authoritarian administration, condescending to our elected officials, all while going about the work of doing what Donald Trump wants, delivering exactly the kind of justice that he craves for my friends, everything, and for my enemies, the law. Senator Amy Klobuchar, Democrat of Minnesota, does have a law degree. In fact, she was one of those Senate Judiciary Committee members you just heard questioning Pam Bondi today, and she joins me now. Senator, we'll get to substance, Chris. But in some ways it's hard to get substance because, as your colleague Senator Schiff pointed out, she really didn't answer many questions. So I was going to start with this. I have never quite seen a performance. I have covered many oversight hearings in my life. I've seen testy exchanges, honestly. Really, they get heated. I have never seen anything like that. Have you ever seen that approach to an oversight hearing?
I have not. And one of my favorite parts that I had not seen was when Senator Schiff said, OK, we'll stipulate that you're attacking each one of us. We will stipulate to that. But actually, what was happening, I think you know, was dead serious. You know, I asked about this Comey prosecution, which was clearly ordered by the president. It was a vengeance prosecution. I asked, and she didn't answer, said wouldn't answer. I asked about the removal and the pushing out, the termination of Eric Siebert, who was the conservative Republican who opined that, in fact, the facts did not support a prosecution. She wouldn't answer that. I asked about the firing of a 20-year experienced prosecutor who is head of national security work in that same U.S. Attorney's Office, who was fired later because some conservative influencer had said that they thought they were involved in the Comey case, nothing to do with this case. and in fact was working on getting justice for our service members in Afghanistan. And then you heard what my other colleagues asked about. You had White House and Welch asking, where's the $50,000 that was given to the border czar? You have got Durbin and Schiff questioning why won't you release the Epstein files? What advice did you get? And then you had Senator Padilla, something that you didn't catch at the beginning there, asking, will you follow court orders? She wouldn't answer that. It was outrageous. She is the chief legal officer for the people of the United States, not for the president of the United States.
So
look, Pam Bondi is a fool and a coward, and she works for someone who believes himself to be a king and is an autocrat, and she has cast her lot with him. I mean, the fact is, Pam Bondi doesn't think she's the Attorney General for all the people. Pam Bondi doesn't think that she participates in a democratic process. Pam Bondi doesn't think she was at an oversight hearing. She believes that she is the personal lawyer to the president. She is there to protect him. She is there to lie for him. She is there to say whatever it is she needs to say to make him look invincible and impenetrable. And she will hurl insults, and she will say whatever it is that will please him and that she thinks she needs to do to protect him. And that is an absolute shame for democracy. It is a threat to the rule of law that she's the Attorney General. And frankly, it is something that should be a national outrage. It should be leading not just this news show, it should be leading every news show. It should not just be an offense to you, Simone, and to Alicia, and to Michael, but it should be an offense to the editors and the publishers of the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal and ABC and NBC and CBS News. But where is everyone in that fight? I know where you guys are. I know where I am, but where's everyone else?
Well, that begs the question, Mark, because what we witnessed today was a petulant little political hack who came prepared with Oppo research on the Democratic senators so that when she was asked a question that she knew she wasn't going to answer, she would then throw back up in their face a whole bunch of BS and noise and crap. And here's the part that bothered me, the fact that no one or very few actually reminded her where she was, what her role and responsibility was, and the fact that they have oversight over her department. Because if I'm a senator on that panel, I said, thank you, madam, we just zeroed out your budget, and you go ahead and do law enforcement. Since you work for Donald Trump, you seem to forget who appropriates your dollars. You seem to forget who got you in the job because we had to approve it here in this body. Why don't we see that kind of fight inside, even from the minorities? The minority members of the Senate, that kind of in-your-face moment where you check her and let her know, oh, babe girl, no, this is not how we have this conversation. You don't come up in this house, in this room, and show your behind the way you're showing it. Now, I think the country would then be riveted. Then you get their attention. Then you help them understand why she's the one that's out of step, not the members of the committee.
Yeah, look, you made a good point. I mean, she came with opposition research, and she came with lines she wanted to deliver, and she was going to deliver them no matter what. And Democrats on that committee had a choice, right? They could either engage in that back and forth with her and in some sense elevate it and dignify it, but on the other hand, to your point, would also show that they would not tolerate it. Or they could try to engage in this as a serious oversight hearing and try to get their questions answered. There's no right or good answer to this for what the Democrats should do. The question is, where were the Republicans? Where were the Republicans in showing any interest in having a witness that they called before their committee? After all, they have the gavel in this case. You know, you can hold the Democrats accountable when the Democrats have the gavel, but Republicans have the gavel in this hearing. And the question is, why didn't any Republicans come to say, hey, witness, you're here as an invitation to the senators, and you're going to act accordingly?
Senator
Senator Kennedy sort of like tiptoed into asking about Howard Lutnick, asking about saying that Jeffrey Epstein was the greatest blackmailer of all time. But to your point, Mark, that was the entirety of what we got from Republicans. I thought there was an interesting exchange, too, between Pam Bondi and Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, specifically around these questions of what is in the Epstein files. Take a look at what I'm calling an exchange, but is clearly not.
There's been public reporting that Jeffrey Epstein showed people photos of President Trump with half-naked young women. The question is, did the FBI find those photographs that have been discussed publicly by a witness who claimed Jeffrey Epstein showed them to him? You don't know anything about that. Okay.
The eye roll, the little nose thing, the absence of an actual answer offends me as an American whose tax dollars pay her salary. But it also offends me, Mark, on behalf of all of the very brave survivors who have come forward, who have shared their stories, who are looking for answers from their government. Why is she not willing to provide them?
Yeah, why wouldn't she even just say the answer to that is no? I mean, look, all of these Republicans wanted the Epstein files released. Okay, they all campaigned. Donald Trump campaigned. Everybody said you got to release the Epstein files. For years and years, you got to release the Epstein files. We know that the FBI and the Department of Justice looked through the Epstein files. That's been publicly reported. We know that Pam Bondi said she had lists on her desk, and now when she's sitting before a Senate committee, and she has the opportunity to say what's in the Epstein files, or even to deny that what the senator said might be in the Epstein files isn't, she sat quiet and she sat silent. And Mike Johnson is preventing the swearing in of a Democratic House member to prevent the release of the Epstein files. I mean, let's be honest. If there was nothing bad in the Epstein files, they sure as hell wouldn't be going to all the trouble to not release the Epstein files. So, you know, I have always believed that there was something in the Epstein files that Donald Trump would find embarrassing. He would find, you know, inconvenient to come out. But watching that answer, I mean, that is an attorney general who does not want to commit perjury, but does not want to say anything about the Epstein files.
Bingo.
I know, Jacob, that you just got some new information about an ICE arrest. What can you tell us?
You know, Chris, as we watch the deployment eventually of the National Guard here to the streets, and two Texas officials have told us at MSNBC that the Texas National Guard is here now in Chicago. The immigration enforcement on a large scale by the Trump administration continues, even with those militarized federal agents on the streets of Chicago. And we just arrived here in the Cicero neighborhood, the suburb west of Chicago, where one of those immigration enforcement actions has taken place. We've obtained some video exclusively, literally arrived on the scene about 20 minutes after this took place. What you're looking at on the left-hand side of your screen is federal agents dressed in tactical gear showing up outside a bakery called Le Baguette and arresting two men, one named Mario, one named Daniel. And the reason I want to show you this is that these are the scenes that are playing out every single day here in Chicago. And when I say the scenes, I mean against sort of the narrative that this administration has had about these being the worst of the worst. Come with me. I want to show you something. This is the bakery itself, and this is where it all played out. These agents evidently rolled up on this bakery. These two coffee cups that are right here on the street right now are the two men's coffee cups. Connor, dip the camera down a little bit more so we can see them. That were left here on the side of the road after they were snatched by these immigration agents. And I want to tell you a little bit more about the people who were taken. And let me get Rosie, who actually was a witness to this playing out earlier today. Come on out, Rosie. Rosie, hey, thank you again, Jacob. We're live on MSNBC. Rosie, you were a witness to what played out. You knew Mario and Daniel, or just Mario?
Yes, Mario.
Tell me about. Well, first, let me ask you. The president says he's going after the worst of the worst. He came. Their agents came to a large Latino neighborhood. 90% of the people in Cicero are Latino. Is this a dangerous neighborhood? Are there murderers that you see on these streets?
No, not at all. They're good people. I was very concerned. I was so nervous that I started filming, and they were just drinking coffee. And Don Mario just got out of the hospital. He's very ill. good people, no criminals. They're very good people.
The video that we're showing is video that you took.
Yes.
You saw the agents take the gentleman when they were inside. Let's just go and show everybody. Come with me, Rosie. So this is the bakery here. The gentlemen were on the inside of the bakery. They were just getting a cup of coffee before going to work. Is that what was happening? And so you saw them being taken by the agents, and these were their coffee cups?
Coffee cups, yeah. They were inside the bakery when they came inside to get them.
Tell me about, come with me over here just so we can step out a little bit. Tell me about these men. You know, who were they? You said Mario was sick and just got out of the hospital after 7 months.
Yeah, Mario has been a customer for a few years, and he's the husband of Lorena, the lady in charge of the bakery. Wonderful people, like no criminals at all, nothing.
And now they've been taken by immigration agents.
Yeah, and he's ill, he needs his medication, and I'm concerned now, you know. Lorena's concerned too.
When they say the worst of the worst, is that who they picked up?
No. They're hardworking men. Like, no, they were just drinking coffee. Not at all.
It's really nice to meet you. I'm sorry that this has happened in your neighborhood. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Anything else that you want to say?
No.
I'll come and talk to you in a little bit. Thanks, Rosie.
Jacob, can I interrupt and ask her a question really quickly?
Yeah.
Can you get her back?
Sure, come on back. Mind? Chris Jansen's got a question for you. Go ahead, Chris.
Hi, I don't know if she can hear me, but obviously you can tell her. I'm just wondering, did you hear anything, was there anything going on that would indicate to you why these two men would be taken in?
Yeah, it's a great question, Chris. Chris Jansen is asking, is there anything that indicated to you in any way why they would have taken these two men, why they would have gone after these two guys?
Did you hear anything?
Or do you think that they were randomly targeted?
I think it's randomly targeted because we're all connected as a community. And I have other videos that they're just taking people walking on the street. Like,
yeah, so you didn't hear anything. There was no altercation.
No, not at all.
And I think that thank you very much. I think, again, and these are pictures of the two men right here. Actually, Rosie, tell me on the left-hand side of the screen. Can we put that back up for 1 second? On the left-hand side of the screen, tell me, Rosie, when you see this, who's on the left?
Mario.
And on the right?
His worker and his friend.
Okay, and that's Daniel. Thank you very much. These are the two men that were taken today. Rosie says it was randomly. I was around the corner on another street where federal agents took a woman that was out on the street. We've heard reports of them at the market up the street. Chris, if this report tells you anything, it's that when they say they're going after the worst of the worst, you make a judgment call for yourselves, the viewers at home. But these are the people that they're picking up off the streets of Chicago. Now, as the National Guard rolls in, as the president starts throwing the word insurrection around about what's happening in this country. Chris?